Now let's talk about diction. Since most poetry is relatively brief when compared to novels and short stories and even plays, the poet's choice of words or diction is extremely important. So, diction is just basically the words the poet chooses to use. And we talk about diction not just in poetry, but in essays and stories and plays as well. But because poetry is so brief, word choice is, I would argue, more important to poetry because poets try to get the most impact out of the words they use because most poems are shorter than novels, for instance. There are some epic poems, right? But most poems are shorter, and so you need to get your point across in fewer words. J. Paul Hunter explains that poems tend to be so compact, so fully dependent on concise expressions of feeling, that it is usually safest to assume that the poet chose each word carefully. If the choice seems peculiar to us, it is often we who are missing something. So, sometimes you might think, oh, there was a mistake in editing, but generally in poetry, if something is peculiar or if something doesn't quite fit, then you know there's meaning behind it. Emily Dickinson is famous for this kind of thing. Um, Pickering and Hopper state, no word in great poetry can be removed or replaced without changing and perhaps harming the whole. So let's think a little bit about diction. Let's consider the following quote, and you might want to reflect a little bit in your journal. Art is the antidote that can call us back from the edge of numbness, restoring the ability to feel for one another. So this is by Barbara Kingsolver, who in fact is not a poet, but a novelist and short story writer. But I want you to think about the word antidote. By using the word antidote, what does the author imply about the inability to feel for another? So if you want to think about that a little bit, you can pause the video. So I think that Kingsolver says art is the antidote that can call us back from the edge of numbness, restoring the ability to feel for one another, because she's implying, or she's trying to say, I think, that the inability to feel for another person, or the condition of being numb to others' feelings or others' condition or situation, is a sickness, right? Because if you have an antidote, it's usually something that treats you medically, right? It it sort of cures whatever sickness is inside of you. Another thing that just comes to my mind is that what do we usually say an antidote is for? Poison sometimes, right? So I think about this as a sickness. The inability to feel for another person is a sickness, but it's also a poison that's inside of us, right? And when we look at art, when we experience art, listen to good music, see a wonderful painting, watch a film, read a great story, all those versions of art, it it can sort of take a little bit of that poison of numbness out of us and cause us to feel, right? So notice that the word antidote is very important there. If it had been changed, it would have had a slightly or maybe completely different meaning, excuse me. So I ask, if the word antidote was changed to gift, what effect would it have on the meaning of the sentence? Art is the gift that can call us back from the edge of numbness. And I think if you want to think about this a little bit, you can pause the video. But I think that it, changing antidote to gift would change the meaning, because an antidote is something you need, right? If you have this sickness or you have this poison in you, you need the antidote to survive. And a gift is something sort of extra in our life. It may be something we want, but it's not necessarily something that we need, right? If I give you a gift on your birthday, if you didn't get a gift from me on your birthday, you would survive and go on and live, right? But the antidote, you need it to survive. So I think that that is the big change that would be made there. Um, the ability to feel for one another, it needs to be cured, or the inability to feel for one another needs to be cured. It needs to be restored. But if it was a gift, you could take that or leave it. So as you complete the questions below this video, think about the passages that I have listed there for you in the same way. Why does an author use a certain word? And what would be changed about the author's meaning if the word itself was changed?